God damn it. Okay, we're starting. Shirley, start.
Oh, shit.
Oh my god.
Welcome to Podcasa, Bonita. I was not ready to start this episode, but I wanted to anyway. I'm Shirley.
You made such a big deal out of opening this time, and I'm Rachel.
Shut the fuck up. Do you want to just restart this?
No, I kind of like that we fucked up. I think it's funny.
Y'all are hearing this shit.
Okay.
Y'all are hearing this shit. God, we've been doing this, season 15, we've been doing this forever, and we're still bad at it.
Right.
So, yeah, welcome to season 15 of Podcasa Bonita. We're, excited to do this one. This is also our Book of Mormon special episode. So, yeah, let's just get right down and dirty with this shit. We're gonna, and I literally mean down and dirty, because the first episode is HumancentiPad.
Aired April 27th, 2011.
Several kids at South Park Elementary have iPads, but Cartman does not, and he is accused of pretending to have one. Kyle is chased through town and kidnapped by Apple employees who claim their actions are legal under the newest versions of iTunes terms and conditions, which Kyle agreed to without reading.
Is that the whole summary?
No, I'm just too lazy to read the last sentence. These ones are long as shit, so I'm paraphrasing. Okay. Y'all know the drill by now.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, I like this. Get off your fucking phone, Rachel.
I'm playing. Hold on. Just keep talking about the episode.
Yeah, this season in general kind of like has not necessarily a bad connotation. People don't hate this season outright, but a lot of people hate this episode, and I can understand why. I don't personally hate it. I don't think it's the greatest, but I can see why people really dislike it, because it is basically a Kyle torture porn.
Yeah. I totally get the hate for this episode, because it is pretty gross to watch. I feel so bad for Kyle. But I do think that the Cartman storyline kind of saves it for me, that I think is super funny.
Oh yeah, see, I think I forgive this episode. I don't think it's that bad because of how funny the Cartman storyline is. She fucked me right in the Best Buy.
Yeah. I should mention that this episode is a parody of the movie Human-Centipede, and if you haven't...
A lot of people did not know,
if
so
you
they just looked at Matt and Trey like, what the fuck is this? Why would you think of this idea, not realizing that it's actually a parody?
Yeah, and if you haven't seen Human-Centipede, don't watch it, for real. I've seen it, and I regret it.
Honestly, I've seen clips of it, and it's just funny. It's, so bad. It's funny. But it honestly, I think what Kyle goes through is scarier than what's actually in the movie.
Yeah, because he's a little boy. He's Kyle. He's my son.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's kind of funny that they use Kyle. I couldn't really imagine Stan in this situation. I guess Kyle works. Kyle would have to work, but it's still kind of painful because, it's Kyle. You don't want to see Kyle get fucked over.
Right.
You know?
You want to see Cartman get fucked over, which he does at the end of this episode. I love the end where he gets, he's like, you want to fuck me, God? And then he gets electrocuted. Because that was such a long time coming. I'm so happy for this.
So yeah, I think that saves it. This is not even my least favorite episode of the season, but for a lot of people, it's their least favorite episode ever. Mm-hmm. But this was actually right after, just a few days after they got back from premiering Book of Mormon. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, props to Matt and Trey for actually making it, because it probably would have killed me. But yeah, that's all I have to say about that one. You want to move on?
I just want to add that I do love the joke, where, everyone reads the iTunes update except for Kyle. I think that's super clever. It always makes me laugh how they're all like, yeah, he didn't read it. And they're like, wait, what? But yeah, that's all I have to say.
Yeah. You had to add that shit, huh?
Yeah, I did.
God. Let's move on to probably my least favorite of the season, actually,
Funnybot. Aired May 4th, 2011.
The South Park Special Ed Department hosts its first annual comedy award show, a parody of a real-life award show that Comedy Central aired in 2011. which culminates in Jimmy proclaiming that Germany is the least funny country in the world. The German government responds by creating Funnybot, who goes on to become a major celebrity and putting most comedians out of work. When the kids try and derail Funnybot's career, they accidentally cause him to decide to destroy the world as the ultimate joke. So, I have issues with this episode. Like, I'm not offended by the episode. I'm not outraged by the episode. I just think it's really dumb and it just falls flat. It falls so flat in it's not only its humor, but it's so-called, like, political, like, message. Its message is kind of just falls flat. Because if you haven't seen the episode, they kind of make the point that, you should not have comedy awards because if you accept an award for comedy, you're taking it seriously and you should never take comedy seriously. But honestly, I think that contradicts everything that Matt and Trey have ever done because they care about comedy. If you don't take comedy seriously, like, your writing's just shitty, you know? You kind of do take comedy seriously when you write it, if you want to write it well. You know, and if you do satire, you're kind of taking an issue seriously. You're just putting a satirical spin on it. And so, yeah, I think that's where it kind of falls flat for me.
I never look into it that far, like Shirley did, but for me, I don't like the episode because I just find it really boring and, like, not that funny at all. It's just, I don't outright hate this episode, but I do kind of, like, dread when I had to rewatch it, and I was like, ugh, I don't want to watch this one.
Me too. I mean, it's really just not, it's not a good episode. I think that Funnybot reminds me of the Dalek, though, from Doctor Who. So, I don't know if that was intentional, but that's what it reminds me of.
The only joke that, like, lands for me is when the boys are, like, arguing with Funnybot at the end, and then, like, about his plan to kill everyone, and Kyle's like, dude, killing everyone on Earth isn't funny, and then Carmen's like, it's kind of funny, you guys.
That's pretty funny, but I think the only kind of joke that lands a little bit for me is the Tyler Perry shit. Whenever Token laughs at Tyler Perry, he's like, oh, god damn it.
It's like, Token's not giving Tyler Perry money.
Tyler Perry out of here. Token's running out of money.
Yeah. He's never gonna leave.
So, this episode, like, I don't, like, agree with the message. I think maybe, like, a comedy awards, Matt and Trey were, like, I don't think they were insulted by it or anything. I don't think they were mad. I think they were just more confused about a comedy awards with, you know, the whole point that they were trying to make. But I'm like, guys, you do kind of take comedy seriously, you know?
Well, also their kind of issue with it was not necessarily that. Maybe they did kind of have an issue, but it was more like the fact that the comedy awards were being hosted by their own network. So, like, Comedy Central was going to give their own show an award, and they thought that was kind of lame.
That is kind of lame, and they're like, okay, that's really stupid if we win, but it's really, really stupid if we don't win. So it's like, fuck us off. But, I don't know, I don't think there's a problem with acclimating comedy. You know, I think it's weird that Comedy Central puts it on, but, the point that they're trying to make is like, oh, you should never take comedy seriously, you can't reward it. I'm like, well, if you do it well, that's probably something that should be rewarded, because, believe it or not, comedy can be really hard to do well. Yeah. And they, of all people, should know that, so, I don't know. I feel like that falls flat with the jokes, so.
Okay, do you want to move on?
Yeah, let's move on. I'll get off my soapbox. We'll get off our soapbox and into Royal Pudding.
Aired May 11th, 2011.
God, this one is fucking long. I'm not really going to read it. So basically, Mr. Mackey is putting on a fucking tooth decay play, and it kind of sucks. And Ike is called away to basically save the royal princess, who's kidnapped by some dick or whatever. And yeah, it's a weird fucking episode.
I don't really like this one either. Not gonna lie.
It's not like, I don't hate it. I like it just a smidge more than Funnybot, just because Ike is in it, and I think Ike is adorable. Well, so, and the tooth decay part is pretty funny. I think whenever Mr. Mackey's losing his shit over, like, you think you're hot shit, dental floss? Fuck you. You wouldn't make it in the real world. Like, I think that's really funny. I can also see where I can see, like, the Book of Mormon, like, influence and everything was like, okay, we're at a hold, everybody, we're at a hold, and...
for me, the reason this one falls a little flat for me is because, like, look at all the previous episodes they've done with Canada and all the Canadian characters and made them so hilarious, and they're great episodes, and this one is just so, like, lackluster in comparison. It's just like, Oh, okay.
It is. It's
like,
pretty lame. Like, the jokes in it, the only time I really actually kind of, like, giggled a bit was when Mr. Mackey was kind of losing his shit. Yeah. And that was just, like, a tiny little thing. Like, I didn't think the tooth decay thing, whatever, was funny. I didn't find the Canadians... Ugly Bob... It was cool that we got Ugly Bob back.
Yeah.
And we got Scott the Dick.
Yeah,
but,
there were a few little, like, tidbits throughout the episode that I thought were cute.
They just could have been used better.
Yeah, like how I thought...
Used better, and it just could have been funnier. I don't think it's that funny, and I think they tried too hard to make it about the royal wedding, because that's what was topical, so... Yeah,
you're right, and that whole scene with, like, the weird Canadian wedding traditions, like, wasn't funny at all. It was just weird.
It wasn't funny. It was just stupid. Kind of like, okay.
I did think it was adorable how much Ike is into his Canadian heritage, and he has like this little box that all Canadians have to open.
I also love the friggin' Kyle at the end. It's just like, isn't that really cool, guys? My little brother is a knight in Canada, and Carmen's like, my uncle owns a Shakey's.
And he's like, okay, yeah, true.
He's like, yeah, you're right.
Although I think my favorite running gag is that old thing where it's like it's being broadcasted. It's like, what a glorious day for Canada and therefore the world. I love that joke.
Or as per tradition.
Yeah. I also loved the oh God, was it? Yeah, it was giant. It was Scott the Dick, who was like a giant, right, in this episode. Yeah. And I loved his introduction where he's like, fee, fi, fo, fum, I spell craft dinner. I thought that was funny.
For an episode we claim to really not like, we're kind of being really nice to it.
I mean, yeah, it's just, I don't hate it. It's just a lot of it was boring, but there were a few things like the ones I just talked about that I didn't hate.
Yeah. I don't dislike it as much as I dislike Funnybot.
Yeah, same.
So okay, well we'll move on to. I actually think this episode is really funny. We'll move on to T.M.I.
Aired May 18th, 2011.
At South Park Elementary, Cartman rants at length over the results of the students' annual school physicals, thinking that the teachers have posted a list of all the boys' penis sizes in the hall for everyone to see. Believing the results to be inaccurate, especially since he is left at the bottom of the list, he measures every boy's penis and posts his own findings in the hall. To make matters worse, Cartman has found out his penis is really the smallest of all the boys in the school. After a consultation session with a psychiatrist, Cartman is sent to anger management. Talks nothing about Randy, but Randy is a big part of this episode.
Yeah, that was a really long summary. It was kind of bad, but I do love the joke where all the men in anger management are only pissed because they all have small dicks. I think that's kind of true.
Kind of interesting. And they talk a little bit about the Tea Party and everything. It's supposed to kind of be an allegory for that. Mm-hmm. I just think this episode is funny because it just talks about pee-pees. Like, it talks about wieners.
Yeah, like Randy being obsessed with like the T.M.I. formula being accurate because he's like trying to overcompensate because he's a small dick was like, that was so funny to me. And I loved him like literally getting into a fist fight with that like female professor who came in and tried to introduce a different method. Like,
yeah,
that was so funny. My
favorite part, without a doubt, is Butters. Butters in this episode is so funny to me, especially when they're first measuring everybody's wiener and everything, and he's like, wait, hold on, it's cold in here, and Carmen's like, Butters, I can't help it if your wiener's pulling a scared turtle, now hurry up.
I love that scene where...
Here he comes, who's the little guy?
I love that part, right after that, when Carmen tries to leave, and they're like, wait, Carmen, we never measured yours. She's like, oh, I did it at home, my penis is like 13 inches long.
It's 13.4 inches. Yeah. It's 1.4. He has like a 1.4. And I love how he's still left as the tiny penis thing.
Yeah.
I love how we've seen Cartman's penis so many times.
I know.
I don't think love is the right word for that, but I think it's funny how we've seen in the series Cartman's tiny little baby pig.
I don't think we've seen anyone else's penis. I think we've seen Butters like a couple times, but like no one else. We've seen their penis.
Butters' penis, and well, we see him later in
the wiener's out one. Oh yeah, that's right.
Well, we'll talk about that a while from now.
Oh yeah, I gotta mention that one scene where Carmen's talking to that anger management dude, and then and the guy's like making fun of him, calling him fat, and he's like texting his wife or something, and then gets his wife to like kill herself, and he's like, I'm not fat, I'm big boned. I was like, oh shit. That was hardcore. I mean, I already knew Cartman was a savage, but like, damn.
That was real savage. I also, I think this episode's funny, and I really can say, like, Matt and Trey were right on the dot with people being super angry because they have small dicks. Because I've talked with Rachel about this one guy at my school, but he's a dick to everybody. He's like the rudest person ever. Like, and we asked our psychology teacher, and she's like, he probably has a very small penis, and he feels very insecure. And we're like, that actually makes a lot of sense. So honestly, I couldn't help but think about that guy at my college when I watched this episode. But yeah, I think I've said enough about it. You want to move on?
Yeah.
Let's go to Crack Baby Athletic Association.
Aired May 25th, 2011.
After seeing the saddest commercial ever about crack babies, Kyle helps to volunteer at a hospital, but finds Cartman already volunteering there. Suspicious, Kyle follows Cartman and finds that he, Craig, Clyde, and Butters have gathered to form a new business called Crack Baby Basketball, in which crack babies fight each other for a piece of crack, with the fights being broadcasted on the internet.
Alright, I'm glad that someone finally called out that guilt-tripping Sarah McLachlan commercial with all the dogs and the sad music. Mm-hmm. And I love that Kyle was the one who was, like, pushed to volunteer by the commercial, because he totally would be. He's such a softie.
See, yeah, I like that, too. I like how, the rest of them kind of don't really care, but it's Kyle who, like, is like, oh, man, now I really gotta go help, because of course it's Kyle who does that. Because Kyle's too pure. What's really kind of, like, funny / sad about this episode is when I was rewatching it for this episode, my mom who works in the, neonatal intensive care unit with crack babies, you know, lots of drug addicted babies, she looks and she's like, that's actually really accurate. Like, at the commercial and everything, she's that's actually accurate. I'm like, I don't know whether to laugh at that or be really sad.
Right, don't tell me that.
I'm actually mostly just sad about it.
Yeah.
But it's really accurate portrayal of them, which kind of sucks. But I don't know. I don't know how to feel about this episode. Like, it's got its funny moments and it's got its good moments, but I don't remember it as much, you know?
Yeah. I do love the whole Kyle's emotional turmoil in this episode, where he kind of realizes that he's doing something wrong, but he's trying to rationalize it, and he keeps coming to Stan to, like, try to convince him. He's really trying to convince himself, but Stan kind of says, you sound like Cartman, and that's all he has to say for Kyle to be like,
yeah, and
okay,
and
this is
eventually
fucked up.
Stan just doesn't say anything,
yeah.
And Kyle's just, like, debating with himself. And,
right.
Like, that's just so Kyle. That is so Kyle. Like, they write him in character really well. Like, above, like, any other character, I think they write Kyle just so consistently, like, the same. Excuse me. I also know about this episode, kind of like the fun-ish fact is, this was an idea promoted by Matt, because he was really, really, really pissed about, NBA players and everything, and how, esports games, like video games, are being made with these guys' identities, like these players' identities, and like their actual image, but they're not getting a fucking dime for playing, and the colleges are making all this money off of them, and he's like, it's basically slavery. And I know that Matt promoted this one because they talked about it in their documentary 6 Days to Air, which I could have mentioned earlier. 6 Days to Air focused really on the HumancentiPad episode, but I forgot about it until now.
Way to go. Yeah, I mean, I was going to bring it up how this is a comment on the NBA situation, but you already brought it up. So I'll move on to, I think my favorite quote in this episode, which I love, with Cartman, is talking to the pregnant crack lady, and he goes, I don't make the rules, ma'am, I just think them up and write them down. That is so Cartman.
I love it when Cartman kind of acts like the slave owner, and he's just like, you're a student athlete. Mighty fine student athletes you got here. And it's like, it's very clever, because Matt and Trey don't give two shits, apparently, in this episode. They're like calling it as it is,
right.
Which I would have never, honestly, this issue would have never crossed my mind. I don't think people would have ever talked about it. I feel like it's an issue that just would not have been discussed at all.
Yeah.
If not for this show. If not for this episode, it just would never hear the light of day. But
yeah, I never even, I mean, I'm not a sports person at all, so I had no idea about this.
Me either, so I'm like, but it's very clever, and also we gotta talk about Slash.
Oh yeah, I always forget about that storyline.
Hunter Slash. That
Basically.
is so fucking funny. Like, I love it when Stan's just like, you guys are 8 years old and you still had no idea Slash wasn't real. I was told Slash wasn't real when I was 5.
That storyline is so fucking weird and just comes out of left field, but, like, I love it. Like, I think it's hilarious, and I love the weirdness of it, and how that really weird storyline kind of wraps up the other storyline. I think it's great.
Oh, I also love Butter singing Boom Boom Pow. Like,
Me
I think
too.
that's... But it really dates this episode way back, because it just reminds me, I'm like, oh my god, that song. Like...
Right, I remember when that song came out.
Like, oh, now we're getting close to our time, and that's scary.
Alright, want to move on?
Yeah, overall, I actually really enjoy this episode. I think it's pretty well written, and I'm glad I rewatched it and everything for this show, because it made me appreciate it more.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, you ready to move on?
Yep.
Okay, next is City Sushi.
Aired June 1st, 2011.
Basically, there's an Asian turf war, and Butters has multiple personalities syndrome unknowingly, but unknowingly his doctor, Janice, actually has the multiple personalities that make the boy appear mentally unfit. So, yeah, I don't feel like reading that long ass.
Okay. I love the part at the beginning where Butters is getting in trouble by his parents, and they're like, Butters started an Asian turf war, and he's like, Butters!
God damn it, Butters. Okay, this episode, I've only, seen it once before and everything until, I watched it, but I actually really dig this episode. I think it's, pretty sweet. Only really for, the reveal of Dr. Janice actually having the multiple personalities and being the Asian guy that has been just a crazy stereotype for 15 years of South Park, and now you're finally realizing, oh, he's actually a white guy, so that's why it's so...
That's why it's like what a white person thinks an Asian person sounds like.
Exactly, so I think that was really clever. I think that's really, really, really cool. I mean, I really could care less, I couldn't care less about the, Japanese-Chinese turf war, really. I think it's funny, but what I really appreciate is Butters in this whole thing, how his, imaginary, personas are viewed as multiple personalities.
Yeah, although, I mean, I'm not super into the Asian turf war storyline, but I do love the joke where, they can't understand each other. And then, cause, the Chinese guy and the Japanese guy, they're like, speak fucking English, I can't understand you.
I also love I kind of love, the diversity of Asian people. And they just, he's like, after that, the Chinese guy kind of fucks over the Japanese guy at the conference and everything. He's just like, yeah, that was a little sneaky, but Pearl Harbor was also kind of sneaky. A little sneaky there.
I forgot about that joke.
That thing was funny as hell. Honestly, this episode was holding out on me. I did not expect myself to, enjoy it as much as I did. But
right, I was kind of like, it's this one, but I really enjoyed it more than I thought I would. Because I haven't seen it in a long time.
Yeah, but that's all I have to say about that one. Next, we're going to move on.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Huh?
I'm so excited for this one.
Yeah, we're excited. We're going to do You're Getting Old and Asperger's, but we're actually not going to combine the two because, I mean, it technically is a two-parter, but I feel like these two episodes really deserve their own separate reviews. So, we'll start with You're Getting Old.
Aired June 8th, 2011.
At Stan's 10th birthday party, one of his presents is the latest CD from a tween wave band, and his mother forbids him from listening to it. After Stan's father, Randy, and Sharon argue over the matter, Randy decides to sit down and listen to the CD, which to the viewer and the adults is the sound of literal defecation and drum beats. He claims to enjoy the CD, but Sharon knows he is lying. As Tween Wave becomes popular, Sharon and the boys' parents forbid them from listening to it and try to play their new music, their old music.
I fucking hate these summaries.
God, these are terrible summaries. Basically, his parents get divorced, and Stan is now confused because both versions, both old and new, everything starts to sound like
basically
shit.
Yeah, he goes to the doctor about it, and I love this line where he's like, well, what's wrong with me? And the doctor's like, it's a condition called being a cynical asshole. And Stan's like, oh no.
So this episode is one of the most highly praised episodes. To me, it's one of the episodes that really makes season 15 a standout season. This is like a standout episode, 2 episodes in the series. This one especially, though, I really think that this one, because basically it leaves off with Stan still feeling like shit. Nothing is really resolved. Stan is feeling like shit, and Randy and Sharon separate, and it ends on that note.
And it ends with Landslide playing, and now I always cry when I hear that song.
The other night, no joke, I was in a restaurant and it started playing Landslide, and my sister and I looked at each other and we're like, God, I can't stop thinking about poor Stan.
I know.
But this is honestly a really powerful, this and the other one, but this one is really, really, really powerful, because it really does leave off, and it freaked viewers out. It really did, honestly, freak viewers out, thinking oh my God, South Park is over.
Yeah.
Matt and Trey are done. The shows that they're done, which honestly, I wasn't a frequent watcher at the time that this aired. I actually kind of picked up the series in season 16, but this one, really, I could really understand why people were freaked out that it was ending. Because I rewatched this, I'm like, oh my God, this just sounds like they're done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I've been a fan of South Park since I was 11, but season 15 was the first season that I watched live. So yeah, I was totally one of those people that was I watched that episode and I was like, what the fuck just happened? I was so freaked out. And I remember thinking is South Park over? What's going on? There was such a intense and kind of brutal episode to watch. Even though it was very, very good.
People also thought, oh, Book of Mormon is a success, so they're just going to move on and do other things now. They're not going to return. And, of course, Matt and Trey honestly weren't thinking that. They were just doing an emotional storyline.
Yeah.
They were doing an emotional storyline, and, this was also before the break. This was the episode right before their month-long break, so that just freaked out people even more.
Right.
And, I mean, I can totally see why. Because it really is, it's kind of sad, but at the same time, it's a really smart and accurate portrayal of somebody who is depressed.
Yeah, totally.
It's an actual, some forms of depression. I'm not saying everybody goes through this kind of nihilistic cynicism in their depression, but, I mean, this is a pretty accurate, I think, from what I've seen. I feel like this is pretty accurate.
Yeah, and I have
which is sad. It's sad that it is, but...
Yeah, I have this rant I'm going to go on in a second, but before I do, I don't want to forget the whole gag with the 2 old dudes who, are trying to save Brandy's britches, and he keeps shitting.
God, the britches! I also forgot to mention, this is another fun fact. This is the first season that Bill Hader wrote. Bill Hader has been on a few seasons. Season 19, 16, I think a little bit of 17, tiny bit of 18, and 20. He's been on at least guest star, but he wrote a lot for this season. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so Bill Hader plays one of the old country rednecks trying to save the britches.
Oh yeah.
The steamy Ray Vaughn and steamy Nix is so funny. Oh my God.
And I love when they sneak into the house while Sharon and Randy are fighting, and then they steal the britches, and then the cops come.
Oh man, that really adds. They kind of needed that and the fucking commercials. The commercials for the movie trailers.
Oh yeah.
Pirates of the Caribbean 40 fucking 8. Fuck you. We know you'll see it. Who cares?
Yeah, those are really kind of true.
Fuck you.
I remember that. Like, I remember, like, the Zookeeper and, like, the
Me
Jim
too.
Carrey Penguin movie coming out. I saw that movie in the theater.
Me too.
I
And
remember
was,
that.
You know, I was at the age where I'm like, oh, that's cool, that's cute. And now I'm like, oh my god, that was.
Right.
Now I get it. Like, it's shit. I remember Jack and Jill coming out. I was like, Adam Sandler is his sister. Oh my god. Like, it made me think of the Rob Schneider is
Oh, yeah.
a carrot. I'm a carrot. It was so funny. So thank God this episode has that, or else it would just be so fucking depressing. It would be an episode of BoJack Horseman.
This
honestly.
episode is honestly like the perfect balance of like seriousness and still being kind of South Park ridiculous. It's why it makes it so great.
Yeah, well,
And
then we
my last thing is that I talked to you about this before.
Oh yeah,
is that
time for a rant.
yeah? Ever since we started this podcast, I've wanted to talk about this, and basically it's me having like major beef with Kyle in this episode for just kind of dumping Stan as soon as Stan needs any help from him, because like especially now that I've rewatched every episode, I'm like, look at everything Stan has done for Kyle over the years. He's schemed to get Cartman's kidney for him when he was dying. He wrote a song to rescue him from San Francisco. He investigated with the list to help his self-esteem. That's not even all of them. Stan does so much shit for Kyle. And the one time Stan needs Kyle, he just bails. He's like, I don't know, it's just kind of too hard. I'm gonna bail on this friendship now. Like, fuck that. Kyle's a snake for that.
He is. See, I was actually going to disagree with you, but now that you brought that up, I'm like, god damn. See, but, I think his reaction was, I think Kyle's reaction was more like story driven rather than character driven, because I feel like they had to have somebody, you know, kind of like that Stan really trusted, like move away for it to feel like, I don't agree, like that's what Kyle should have done, but I actually, in a way, I kind of understand. I understand why Kyle did it. I'm not saying I approve of it, but I understand why Kyle kind of bails, because, you know, I'm not going to name specifically, but I had somebody very, very close to me who went through a depressive episode, and it is emotionally draining. Like, it's emotionally draining, obviously, on the person who's affected, but then it kind of carries out to you, and it's like, it's hard to see him like that, and sometimes you do want to be selfish and be like, no, I can't do this, or else it's going to affect me, which in some cases can be justified, but I mean, I'm not saying like I backed out. But I can say like it is extremely emotionally draining for the other people, because depression doesn't just affect one person; it can affect a ton of people all at once. So I'm not justifying what Kyle did or anything like bailing, but I understand his emotions. But I also feel like what Kyle did was really story driven and not character driven.
Yeah, I think they wanted to isolate Stan to further the depression. I think is what our manager were going for. And for me, like, I totally get, like, being like, oh, well, you can't, if you are friends with toxic people, you gotta let them go. I totally get what you're saying, too, but, like, I just have beef because, like, Kyle didn't even try to help Stan, like, at all. Like, there was literally zero effort went into it before he just dropped him completely. And that was so shitty to me, especially, like I just said, when I name all the shit that Stan has done for Kyle. Like, Stan just, like, cares about Kyle so much, and for Kyle to do that was, like, so shitty to me. Like, I literally can't. Like, I get so mad thinking about it. I fucking love Kyle, but that's, like, the one thing he's done where I, like, get legitimately really mad.
Sorry about that. Kind of pause, that weird pause. My power just went the fuck out, and so did my router. So,
Let's just move on to next.
The shithole.
Yeah. Do you want to just move on to Asperger's?
Yeah, we'll move on to Asperger's.
Aired October 5th, 2011.
Yep. It was the conclusion. Cartman attempts to fake Asperger's syndrome. Even Kyle and Kenny are on board. Meanwhile, Stan cannot seem to get his life back to normal no matter what he tries. That's bullshit, because Kyle and Kenny aren't on board to, like, fake Asperger's syndrome.
Although I do love all the jokes that come from Cartman, like, misunderstanding Asperger's, like when he put hamburgers in his butt.
See, oh my gosh, this was equally as awesome as You're Getting Old, because, I mean, where you had this depressing episode, they technically do, like, they decided to reset and everything. Like, that Matt and Trey were like, oh no, we're not done with South Park. Like, Jesus, no, I'm sorry. We're just making actually think this episode, I would normally say You're Getting Old is more depressing, but honestly this one kind of like depresses me a little bit more.
Well, yeah, on that note, I remember, like, I want to talk about the ending speech. I'm going to skip right to the end. The ending speech where Stan's like, no, I want to move forward, like, maybe you'll be my new best friend, and blah, blah, and my parents won't go back together, and he's, like, positive about it, because, like I said, this was the first season I watched live, so watching this when I was 15, and I mean, like, hearing that speech, I was, like, terrified, because, like, I was kind of a kid then, and I was totally like standing. I'm like, no, everything has to go back to the way it was.
Exactly.
I'm like, no. But now that I'm 20 and I'm rewatching that, I was kind of so bummed out because like Stan like had the chance to have a new life and it totally got ripped away. And I know it couldn't be South Park if it was like that, but I'm kind of sad for him because like, he really was excited for it and he think he deserved to have it. And Matt and Sherry were like, nope.
Yeah. See, like. I think they did that on purpose, though. They mentioned it themselves. It's like, oh, well, you know, we didn't want to just crap out and everything. We didn't want to cop out and make everything all of a sudden bright and happy and everything. So we were like, well, we just have to make it sad that it's going back to normal, you know? Right. And we have to make it sad so it doesn't feel like a cop out and everything. And I think that was like the best way to handle it and everything.
Yeah, I agree.
But because it still contains that emotional charge, which is what makes these two episodes so great. Like, they're honest, these two episodes are some of, like, the most praised episodes of all time.
Yeah, and they deserve it.
And, you know, like, I can totally guess why. And listening to his speech at the end, like, really, like, I get it, and it's so positive, but it totally bums me out and everything. I'm like, because now, you know, I'm a college student, I'm at this point where I'm like, I can't go back. Like, things are difficult, and I have to, like, grow up. I have to be an adult, and, you know, it's scary, but it also, like, so it bums me out in that point, but, like, the way he says is, like, you know, you still have hope. You have to just kind of take it with a positive attitude, because things aren't going to stay the same. Things are going to change. And, you know, this is the kind of thing that you just really would not expect from South Park. When South Park tackles an issue, it's usually something that affects multiple people. You know, it's something political and it's something going on in the world. Very rarely have they tackled something that's just so personal, something like so direct, and something that isn't like as broad. You know, like they'll tackle Scientology, they'll tackle Mormonism, racism, and all that. But it's so weird for them to tackle, like, personal, like, depression. Yeah. Like, you really wouldn't expect that. And I think this is such a standout episode, with it still being South Park. It's still so South Park, but it's just, you would not expect it from the creators, honestly.
And I think one of my favorite things about the ending is the very last scene when Stan's in bed, and his friends are like, come on, Stan, let's go. And you can tell that it's being reset. But then before Stan leaves, he kind of swags out of a bottle of Jameson's in his drawer, and he leaves.
Yeah.
And it's so sad because you're like, it is going to reset. South Park's going to go back the way it was, but this scene is letting you know that that's how Stan's going to have to get through it now. Like, that's going to be happening even though we don't see it.
We don't see it, and it's so gut-wrenching. Like, that, every time I see that, like, I know it's coming, but every time I see it, like, my heart sinks a little bit, but I'm not angry about it. Like, I'm not angry, like, how dare you do that? And I'm like, that just makes it so real. Like, that's honestly just really powerful. Yeah. And South Park has always been, like, comedic and brilliant, but that was, like, the first time it was like, bam, that was powerful.
Exactly. And I love that it didn't... Yeah, I love that it didn't show Stan just, like, getting over the depression. And, like, no, because, like, it's still going to reset, but he's still depressed. And that was a great way of showing that.
Yeah, it's like, it really, like, it's a sad ending. It's not a pleasant thing to watch, but it's something that you just kind of have to sit there and suck up. You just kind of have to sit there and be like, you know what, it's an ending. And it's not one that but I still feel like, I still love it. I still, for some reason, I cannot explain. I feel like if it was handled in any other way, I'd have been like, God, they really kind of crapped out of this, but I don't know, like, after rewatching this, I really understand all of the praise that these two episodes get. I just think they're wonderful. I think they're so powerful emotionally, and they still manage to be funny.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they still manage to be funny. So, props to Matt and Trey.
Yes. All right, do you want to go on?
Yeah, let's go on to The Last of the Meheecans.
Aired October 12th, 2011.
What begins as an innocent game between the boys turns serious when Cartman joins the U.S. Border Patrol. Not surprisingly, Cartman turns out to be really good at stopping Mexicans.
Alright, is that the whole summary?
That's the whole fucking... It had nothing to do with Butters, apparently. God, these summaries suck. Step up your game, Wikipedia.
Alright, basically what happens is that Butters, they're playing this border patrol game, and Butters is one of the Mexicans, but he gets lost, and then these white people pick him up, and they think he's an actual Mexican, and then he ends up in Mexico, and all the Mexicans are realizing that America sucks, and they want to go back.
And see, you know what's so funny? Like, people are totally gonna, like, try, and have tried, to, like, suck every, like, oh, this is what they're saying about this. I'm like, no, I just honestly think they're saying most of this to be funny. Yeah. Like, this episode, I feel like, doesn't really focus much on, like, immigration laws as much as it does, like, just being funny.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't feel like that was... I mean, political things are never usually their, like, main objective.
Right.
But, this one, I'm like, no, I just think they're just being really funny.
Yeah, like, most of my notes that I have, I don't really have any comments on, like, the immigration or the political stance of it. Most of it is just, like, quotes that I find are really, really funny. Like, like when they're...
Mexican work song.
Yeah. And, like, one of my favorites is when they're all eating dinner at Cartman's house, and they're telling stupid jokes, and Craig is like, why do girls wear makeup and perfume? Because they're ugly and they stink. I'm like, spoken like a true homosexual, Craig.
I love it. I honestly, like, I really enjoy this episode, and I always kind of... With this whole season, I always think, I'm like, oh, it's this season. This is like a total down. This is just such a bad season for South Park. But I look back, I'm like, there are some really bomb-ass episodes in this. It's just like a few, like, really bad duds that kind of, like, give it this weird connotation and this negative connotation.
Yeah, and also, you and I talked about this, is that it's this season is following seasons 13 and 14, which were really, really phenomenal, that even though the season's pretty good, it's like, it's still kind of a downgrade from season 14, which is, like, amazing.
Yeah, it's hard to follow season 14, is what we're saying. It's really hard to follow how good season 14 was. So, but I love this. I think Butter, it's great. It's just kind of like a very funny and well thought out episode. I feel like every joke hits. I think the story's funny. The musical aspects of it are funny, like the work. Mexican work.
Yeah. Oh, another scene that I love is when they're at the sleepover and the boys just realize that, like, Butters is missing. And then Stan goes, Butters is one of those people who you can never remember if he was there or not.
That's
it's
Craig.
so fun. Oh, Craig said that. But it's so true because, one, like, you always know a person like that, and two, that's, like, so Butters. Like,
that is so Butters. I love Butters' like little attitude this whole time and everything. He gets hit by a fucking car, but he's just like, no, wait, mis amigos, I have to cross the border.
Yeah. And I love how he, like, is the king of Mexico now. He just, like, raises his hands, and then you can hear the Mexicans, like, ah!
And I love the Montequilla thing, like how because Montequilla is butter in Spanish, and, like, that's so funny because it sounds, like, all noble and everything, and then you just have the American version, which is, like, cute little Butters.
Mm-hmm.
So he's, like, Montequilla in Spanish. I just think that's really clever. I really enjoy this episode, and I'm staring at it right now, a little Border Patrol Cartman from a blind box. So he's holding his little taser and everything.
Alright, want to go on?
Yeah, we'll go on to Bass to Mouth.
Which aired October 19th, 2011, which is Trey's birthday.
Trey's birthday. That's the second time an episode has aired on Trey's birthday. And we're sad.
I love and hate that we know that.
Hate that we are such crazy fans that we know that. Anyway, the students of South Park Elementary are the victims of a new gossip website. An elusive hacker has somehow gained access into all the students' confidential phone calls and emails and is posting all of their juicy stories on the internet. The boys are shocked when they discover the identity of the hacker.
Lemmy returns. I gotta start with that. I was so happy to see Lemmy again.
Yep. I kind of love the wiki links and Lemmy Winks.
Yeah.
That's really funny. Oh, Lemmy Winks, stop wiki links. That's really, really, really funny.
Yeah, the music in this one's really funny too. One of my favorite lines is at the beginning when Principal Victoria's over the intercom and she's like, well, the following student supports the principal's office, Eric Cartman. Stops. He's like, God damn it.
God, I love, as much as I love, the boys talking about the morality of, what was it called? Eavesdropper.
Mm-hmm.
I think the best parts of this episode are definitely with Cartman trying to keep all the other students from killing themselves and just having, all the students, shit their pants and everything.
Yeah.
And then they, literally throw him under the... It's we gotta throw Eric Cartman under the bus. And it's what are we gonna do? We're gonna take Eric Cartman, throw him under a bus.
Yeah. That's the best scene of the episode for me, because I remember, like I said, I watched this live when I was 15. I literally screamed when that happened. I was like, oh my God, I was terrified. I'm like, I hate Cartman, but is he okay? I couldn't believe that actually happened.
But no, the best part of this episode, the funniest fucking part, I remember I showed this episode to one of my friends, and he I almost had to perform CPR because he was dying laughing. And it's the ending scene where Cartman has payback.
Oh yeah.
Mr. Mackey cupcakes filled with Arby's horsey sauce and laxatives and everything. And Mr. Mackey's shitting his pants and hitting the ceiling.
He's like, oh, it's bad.
Falling across the floor by shitting his pants it's bad, it's bad.
And I love Cartman watching with that sadistic smile. He's like, yeah, I put a lot of Arby's sauce in those.
That's the best scene in this whole
That's
episode.
the only time that Cartman really doing something that fucked up, but he was totally right to do that, honestly.
Yep.
I'm with Cartman on that one.
So funny. It's so funny. And I really love, again, Kyle's morality and everything, because he's very much, you see this again, Kyle's super against having this personal thing, he doesn't want to look at it. He does the same thing in the Magic Bush episode in season 18 with Craig's mom's bush, and everything. He's so kind of very grounded and everything. He's very empathetic and sympathetic, so he's just got this great head on his shoulders.
Yeah, I actually kind of like Stan's morality thing a little bit more. I love the whole thing where Stan thinks Eavesdropper is hilarious until something embarrassing happens to him,
exactly.
And then now he hates it, and then Kyle is not here for it. Just totally calls him out. It's so funny.
Exactly, which is, that's really, as much as I would love to be a Kyle, I would totally be a Stan in this situation.
True.
If it happened to me, I'd be like, oh, this is bad. I feel like most everybody is a Stan. Very few people are Kyles.
Kyle is the shining light in this world. Let's go on.
Oh yeah, let's go on.
Oh no, hold on. One other line that I really love is the Craig line where he's like, a new story just dropped on Eavesdropper. Allison Taft reveals an embarrassing secret about Craig Tucker. Oh wait, that's me. I love the way he delivers that line.
He's like, oh wait, that's me.
Yeah.
I love that.
I love Craig.
Well, let's go on to, this is one of my favorites, Broadway Brodown.
Aired October 26, 2011.
After Randy takes Sharon to see the hit musical Wicked, he becomes Broadway's biggest fan and discovers that all Broadway musicals contain subtext, encouraging women to give blowjobs to their men. After this revelation, Randy decides to bring Broadway to South Park by creating his own musical so the fun can never end. This is weird that I love this episode so much, because the boys aren't in it at all. There's not a single line by Kyle or Cartman or Kenny or Stan.
No, Stan has a few lines.
Stan has a few lines, but he's barely in it.
Yeah.
At all. You have him talking to the vegan kids and everything. And I also love this because it has Shelley.
Yeah.
I really love Shelley. But I'm a huge Broadway musical fan, so I really love this one. And the fun fact that I have for this episode is Bobby Lopez, who they did Book of Mormon with, and we'll talk more about Bobby Lopez when we talk about Book of Mormon. He co-wrote this episode. He was one of the writers and wrote some of the music with Trey in this in this episode, and he actually provided the voice. The Larry Fegan, the vegan.
Oh.
He was Robert Lopez. So I really enjoy this episode. One, because it's got Bobby in it, and two, because it makes fun of musicals, which I hold sacred. So it's great.
I really loved the kind of budding friendship between Shelley and Larry. It was so adorable, and it made me so sad when he was fucking murdered at the end.
That was so goddamn unnecessary.
I know.
But my absolute, I think the blowjobs part is really funny, the subtext, but I absolutely love the rip on fucking Spider-Man the musical. A lot of people outside of the theater community probably, they had news stories about it, but basically around the time they were doing Book of Mormon, they were getting it prepared. The same time they were preparing the Spider-Man in the Dark or whatever, Spider-Man musical and everything, and people were like, oh my god, it's going to be amazing. It's going to have costume designers that are, totally renowned, and it's got the guys from U2 doing the music, and it's got all these cool stunts. Good luck to anybody else who's trying to bring their show out during this time. They're always telling Matt and Trey when they were making Book of Mormon, good luck against these guys. And then when it was, when Spider-Man was released, it was a total fucking shit show. It is literally one of the most embarrassing ass musicals ever put. People were falling, getting hurt, almost killed because of these stupid ass stunts, and the costumes were dumb and crazy. They had so many problems. They had to close it, reopen it a ton of times, and it was just a big ass mess. So I love them kind of ripping on them with with Randy as Spider-Man, fucking shit up and everything. Goddamn funny.
I love the scene where Randy finally comes clean to Sharon about why they're going to so many musicals. And Sharon's in denial. She's like, no, all these musical producers, they're so classy. This is Broadway. And he's like, no, Sharon, they're all bros.
They're bros. I love how she's like, no, because I first started loving Broadway shows when me and Kip and his brother all went out to see something, blah, 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 and then oh my god. She gets, and then Randy's like, Shelley! So funny.
I love the way he yells her name.
I love the line where he tries to pick up Shelley and everything. He's like, we're leaving, and then the older guy's like, will you be quiet? I'm trying to watch this show with my granddaughter. And Randy's like, you sick pervert. That's so funny. I just think this is a really just consistently funny episode. Mm-hmm. It's funny the whole time, especially if you're a Broadway fan. You're either you love this episode as a Broadway fan, or you're really offended. Yeah. And if you're offended by it, you're just a pussy. So
I love how this was a fucked up promotion for their own musical. At the end, they're like, go see Book of Mormon, you'll get a blowjob.
Yeah, you'll get a blowjob. It's so, I love this. I can't wait to talk about Book of Mormon. But for now, we're actually going to move on and talk about 1%.
Aired November 2nd, 2011.
The kids of South Park Elementary are being punished for Cartman's failings in the physical education department. What will Cartman do when they all gang up on him? That sounds like a shitty fan fiction, synopsis. Oh my god.
It totally
These
is.
are terrible. But yeah, this one, I enjoyed this one, but not for any of its political things. Honestly, I actually think the political stuff is kind of confusing, because what it's trying to satirize was kind of a small event. It's gaining more popularity now with the recent election and everything and all this, but at the time, it's kind of you're really going to talk about that? You're going to try and satirize the 1% rallies? Mm-hmm. Really?
Yeah. I kind of totally forgot about the whole political storyline, because I'm so focused on the Cartman one, which is so funny. Basically, is what the stupid summary didn't tell you is that everyone's pissed at Cartman because he's fat and he made them all fail the physical or something, and they were picking on him and saying he needs to get rid of his stuffed animals, and subconsciously he realizes that he's too old for them, and they're right. But he has to, make this whole dramatic murder mystery thing where the animals all kill each other instead of just throwing them away. Cartman's so fucking dramatic.
That part's funny. It's not my favorite of the bunch, but I still enjoy it. I really love any scene with like, oh my god, any scene with Marc Jacobs, because the story behind this. Okay, so if you watch it, they have like a little Marc Jacobs doll, and Marc Jacobs is a designer, and they found out that he had 2 tattoos, one of Clyde Frog and one of Rumper Tumpskin, like just on his body. Like he's this huge famous ass, like billionaire designer. And so they're like, that's pretty cool. We're going to put him in this show. So they gave Carmen a little Marc Jacobs doll. And now Marc Jacobs, after seeing that episode, got a tattoo of the Marc Jacobs doll with Rumper Tumpskin and Clyde Frog tattooed on that doll. So it's like, it's the best. I love that. I'm a huge Marc Jacobs fan anyway, so I really like that part. Of course, that's what I pull from this episode.
Right. I love okay, this is a really, like, stupid reference. It's really small. And they do make another reference to this later, in a later season. But I love the Outsiders parody where one of the stuffed animals is dying. They're like, Eric, stay cool. That always makes me laugh.
Rachel knows damn well not to talk about the fucking Outsiders with me.
Oh, yeah. I totally forgot about that.
My mom forgets that I already own a bunch of copies. She has bought me, on separate occasions, 3 copies of the fucking Outsiders movie. So, totally unrelated. But, yeah, it's like a clever written episode and everything. It's got some good jokes in it. I like it.
Yeah, it's a pretty good one. Oh, I really like this. I really like the next one.
Yeah, and we're going to move on. That's all we had to say about that one. A History Channel Thanksgiving.
Aired November 8th, 2011.
The boys discover the real meaning of Thanksgiving. That's fucking it.
Wow. Alright, okay, so this episode is a parody of Thor. And it's basically... how do I even summarize this one? It's kind of picking on the History Channel a little bit about how the History Channel airs, like, this bullshit, like, alien and ghost series. But it's the History Channel. You shouldn't have that, like have that shit and call it history. And then they also have this whole joke with, like, the Thor thing. Like, a pilgrim lives in this other planet with, like, Indians and pilgrims, and they fight over stuffing mines and stuff, and he crashes to Earth like Thor does, and it's a pretty good episode.
What I want to know is why people are freaking out over the stuffing mines, because stuffing is literally the most boring-ass food in, like, the whole Thanksgiving setup, and if you think it's the best, you're fucking wrong.
Right. I mean, I like stuffing, but I could totally, like, go without it. Like, I wouldn't even think about it.
Like, I don't even think... If it's good, fine, but most of the time, people don't know how to fucking cook it. But they burn the stuffing. Right. Anyway, that's my little stuffing rant. Okay. But, yeah, I like this one. I think it's funny. I kind of like how exasperated Kyle is, and I like the running gag. It's like Kyle is menopausal and everything.
Yeah.
And that's like pissed off.
And he has his period and shit. I also like the joke where Kyle's like, they call him a doctor and they put him on the show and he's like ranting and he's like, no, I was actually just being sarcastic. Kyle was like so me, honestly.
Oh. I also kind of like the Natalie Portman joke.
Yeah, I was just about to bring that up. I love how Kyle is like going on a date with her to get her to open her wormhole.
Can you open your wormhole, please? It's like, nah. It's
no.
Okay.
I remember, like I said for the 1000th time, that I did watch this season live for the first time, and I had just seen Thor before this episode came out, and I like lost my shit. I was like, oh my god, I know what this movie is.
Yeah, I had seen Thor before I watched this and everything, so it's literally, you don't even have to watch Thor. If you've seen this episode, you've seen the movie Thor.
Right.
But, yeah, like...
It's off to say about this one. I mean, I know I claimed I loved it, but I'm like, I don't have anything else to say.
I really liked the whole thing where, that pretty much all white guy, he's like, I'm 1/16 Cherokee.
Oh, yeah.
You have enslaved my people. It's like, shut up, bitch, you're white.
I love where he's like the white man must pay or something. Like, you're white.
There's this one really racist lady, of course, because I'm in the South and I'm surrounded by them. She's super racist, but she's just like, I'm 1/4 Cherokee Indian. I'm like, then what the fuck? Of course you are. Sure you are.
Right.
You're like 2% milk and 1/4 Cherokee.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this episode is like funny. It's kind of weird though. I know that people thought it was like really weird at the time because it aired weeks before Thanksgiving, so they're like, why the hell are you doing a Thanksgiving special?
And
like,
Trey just do what they want. They don't care.
They do a Thanksgiving special, honestly, in July if they wanted to.
Right. And
if they actually aired episodes in July.
Which they don't, but... Alright, want to go on?
Yep, and here, this is actually probably my favorite episode, if not, You're Getting Old and Asperger's. This is The Poor Kid.
Aired November 16th, 2011.
When Kenny's parents are sent to prison, he and his siblings are sent to foster care. Cartman is upset about this because after Kenny is gone, he is now the poorest kid at school.
Okay. I love the whole gag where Kenny and his family go to this foster care place where their foster workers like obsessed with Penn State jokes, and then Cartman like is obsessed with telling like yo mama poor people jokes, and then I love the scene where they're in the room together and they're like basically battling with the jokes. It's so funny. I think this episode is really awesome. I think every joke hits, but at the same time it's also got such a great emotional tie with it, with Kenny and Karen, which is my favorite part of this episode. I love when we get to see more of Kenny, especially when he interacts with Karen, because, you know, we always just think of Kenny as like the little sex-crazed, crazy kid, and he's poor and he dies a lot. Like, that's Kenny, but you also get to see this other side of Kenny as being, like, super protective over Karen, his little baby sister. Like, it's adorable. Like, that's so sweet. Like, Matt and Trey did not honestly have to do this at all. Like, they could have done an entire storyline and made it, like, comedic the whole way through. They literally were just like, oh, it's cute. We gotta make it cute. We gotta make it an emotional episode. I love this episode because Kenny uses Mysterion to act as a guardian angel for his sister, which is really, sweet and very heroic of him. And it shows, one, that he's very protective of his sister and he loves her, and two, it's another example that, like, Mysterion is so much more to him than the other kids' superhero personas are to them. Like Mysterion's, like, real to Kenny. It's not just a game.
Yeah, and what I really love about this is, I love in the beginning and everything, you know, like, Karen's, like, always clinging to him and everything, and not necessarily in the beginning, but later on, he, like, fights the bully and everything, and all the other kids are saying, like, oh, you're my guardian angel, like, we saw Karen's guardian angel and everything, like, they speak out and everything, and they're like, that's amazing, like, all the little kids believe it and everything, and it's so fucking pure.
I know.
Like, there's no better way to describe it than pure and wholesome, and it's adorable. Like, and you know you have that, like, whole, like, strict agnostics thing, which is, like, really funny to me.
I love that joke. I love especially how they use Dr. Pepper to, like, rip on agnostic people. They're like, what is it? Is it Coke? Is it root beer? We don't know. Because I've always thought that about Dr. Pepper. It's so funny to see Matt and Trey agree with me. I'm like, what is it? I don't know.
I actually read it is a spicy cherry soda.
It's a spicy?
Yeah, it's a spicy cherry soda. Apparently white people named it or something.
Probably.
Like,
oh, my other favorite part is when, I don't even remember what Cartman was fucking doing, but he was, like, ranting about something. And he's like, something, he says Kyle's name. He's like, Keel. And then Kyle finally goes, my name is not Keel. I was so happy.
The foster mom was like, my name is not Man.
Someone finally called him out. It's been 15 seasons.
URL on Tumblr was whatever Kiel. So,
oh yeah.
Thank you, this episode, for my old ass Tumblr URL. But, yeah, I also, I love whenever Cartman breaks out, it's like, I'm not, he's not,
I love the part where there's like the dance number, and then some kids like, did he do this stuff at your old school? And Kenny's like, yeah.
This is just an adorable episode. I think all the jokes hit, but it's also got that emotional tie. It's just a very good episode. Not a lot of people talk about it for whatever reason.
Only the Kenny fans do, really.
It's so fucking good. I love it. Like, it's impossible to hate Kenny after watching this episode, really.
Him.
But yeah, that's season 15. We're not done. You still have to listen to us fucking talk, because we're going to talk about Book of Mormon.
Yay.
Matt Stone, Trey Parker, and Bobby Lopez's musical!
Yay. Alright, you want
Alright.
to summarize it?
So, I'm going to basically give you some history and summarize the musical along with it. So, I'm going to take you back to biblical times, 1823. No, actually, 2004. Matt and Trey, at the time, were doing Team America. They were shooting. It was off, away from South Park and everything. They were in New York, and they found out, hey, there's this Broadway musical going on called Avenue Q. There's this little music, and it's got puppets too, and they're like, shit, somebody else is doing puppets. They stole our fucking idea or something. They weren't, pissed or anything. They're like, somebody else did marionettes, and it's like, who the fuck would want to steal the idea of marionettes? That's stupid. So, they go and see it, and I'm a big fan of Avenue Q. It's basically an R and X-rated Sesame Street. It's hilarious. I love it. It's one of my favorite musicals ever. And apparently it's also one of Matt and Trey's favorites because they absolutely loved it. And they looked inside of the playbill, and Bobby Lopez, the composer and one of the writers for the musical, had personally thanked Matt and Trey in the actual playbill. And they're like, holy shit, what the fuck? Because we don't know this guy. We don't know anybody who worked on this. We had no part of this. Dude. So, after the show, they loved it, and they went to talk to Bobby Lopez. And they asked, hey, why are we in the playbill? And Bobby Lopez says, when I saw South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, it made me want to make something like that. And that's where Avenue Q came from. So I owe you guys a lot. He's like, it's like you guys are my mentors and everything. And so they're like, dude, holy shit, now we gotta go talk and everything. So they actually go out for drinks, and they're asked, and Bobby's like, God, what, I don't know what I want to do next. And they're like, well, what do you think you want to do? What are you interested in? And he's like, well, I'd always love to do a Joseph Smith musical about Mormons. And Matt and Trey were literally taken aback, what the fuck? No one is interested in that shit. Only we are. No way. We want to do a musical like that. So honestly, it was a match made in heaven. That's totally the coolest thing ever. I think this story of how they met is so cool because it's just fate right there. And so anyway, they worked on an album for years. Originally, it was a Joseph Smith musical, but after doing the All About Mormons episode of South Park, they kind of realized, okay, that's not going to be very sustainable. It's not going to be a very good, bulky show. We don't really want to do that, but we'd like to do something about Mormons. And from there spawned Book of Mormon, which came out, actually it was just a few days ago, was the 6th anniversary. It came, they worked on Book of Mormon and released it out of previews and everything. And it's basically about two Mormon missionaries, Elder Price and Elder Cunningham. Elder Price is a 19-year-old fresh out of their training school or whatever, and he wants to go to Orlando and he's like, I'm a wonderful Mormon, I've done everything, God's going to reward me. And he gets paired up with Elder Cunningham, who is a compulsive liar and a bit of a dork. So the two are paired and end up going to Uganda. And the whole story revolves around Elder Price struggling with his faith because of all these challenges being thrown in. Elder Cunningham struggling to be, quote-unquote, a good Mormon and not lie, and he kind of lies about Mormonism and kind of, screws himself over. And then you also have to focus on the tribal village in Uganda, mainly Nabalungi, who wants to go to Salt Lake City. And it's just such a wonderful story. It talks about religion, it talks about everything. And what starts out as a total parody for religion and a total satire ends up being kind of a promotion of faith, because at the end of the show they all kind of make this point these are just stories, but they give people hope, they give people a way to have their lives, it gives them this wonderful positive attitude. So it's a good thing. It doesn't matter if we question the stories. If it makes us better people, our faith is a good thing, so a lot of people like to skim over that message and just immediately get offended, but to me the show is so pro-faith faith and everything, it's just like super clear and everything. So yeah, Rachel, what's your personal like connection to the show? Because I could say a lot about it.
Well, this musical is kind of what got me into musicals, because originally I only cared about it because Matt and Trey did it, and I was like obsessed with them and obsessed with South Park. I'm like, well, I gotta go see it. So for years, I don't know if it was for years, but for a long time I was like, oh Mom, I want to see this musical, blah blah. Can we figure out when it's in Chicago? And she's like, okay, maybe. And she's like, okay, and I saved up money for it. And I saved up like so much money, like way more money than I needed to buy tickets. That she was like, oh, and she was like super impressed with me. She's like, oh, okay, well I'll just buy the tickets because I'm impressed that you saved all this money. And so I got to keep the money and go to the musical, which was nice. So she took me. I think it was my senior year of high school, but it might have been my junior. I'm not positive. But yeah, basically it was in the spring, and my mom took me, and it was fucking amazing. I was like blown away. I was obsessed with it. And my mom even liked it, because she's like not a huge South Park fan, but she thought it was pretty funny. And she's like, it's not my favorite musical I've ever seen, but I enjoyed it. What else is there to say? I love it. It's still the only musical I've ever seen live, which I want to change in the future, but so far before I was a musical virgin before Book of Mormon, but now I'm not.
See, my connection with it, my personal connection with it is actually more like the opposite. I started out as a huge musical theater fan, and like I had said, I had been like a occasional South Park watcher. Like occasionally I would watch South Park. And what had happened, like I had known about the Book of Mormon forever, but because I was in like a religious household and everything, I've heard like people like, oh, it just rips on religion, it's the best thing ever. I'm like, oh, I don't think I'd want to see that. Well, finally, like I had a friend who just absolutely loved it. I had a few friends who absolutely loved it, and it was probably about it was in the middle of high school and everything, and I was already a big musical theater fan, and I'm like, well, you know what, I'll give it a try, and I found out, I'm like, oh, the person who wrote Avenue Q and the music to Frozen co-wrote this musical. I'm like, well, now I've got to listen to it, because I was in love with Frozen, and I was in love with Avenue Q. So, Avenue Q was actually probably one of my first musicals that I was ever obsessed with, like totally obsessed. So, I went and watched it, and I fell in love, like instantly. Like the first song I heard, I'm like, oh, I'm into this. Like I found every bootleg I could find. I drew fan art of it. I was just so obsessed, and it had come to like locally, but I was never able to go see it. And so cut to my senior year, I graduate, and my family's like, hey, what do you want? Where do you want to go for your graduation, like, trip? What do you want to do for your graduation? And I'm like, you know what? I want to go to New York. I want to go see Book of Mormon at the Eugene O'Neill Theater. Like, that's what I want to do. And that was my, like, Make-A-Wish senior trip. So we went here, and of course my family wants to do other things, but my mind is just like, no, I've got to go see, we got to see Book of Mormon and everything. And we got $99 tickets each. It was expensive as hell, but we got pretty nice seats and everything. And I will not forget it. Like, the second I walked into the Eugene O'Neill Theater, like, I just burst into tears. Like, I physically could not contain myself. I was so happy. I burst into tears and just started crying because I was so overwhelmed with how happy I was. It's honestly it was one of the best moments of my life. It was like a bucket list, you know, I checked something off my bucket list, and, like, I still have the playbill, I still have the tickets. I love this musical. It's still my favorite to this day, so, and it's what got me into Matt and Trey. From then, I learned more about Matt and Trey, and I watched South Park, so, thanks to Book of Mormon, I'm a huge South Park fan. And I'm here. So,
on this shitty podcast.
Without the Book of Mormon, I would not be here. So, what's your favorite song from this musical?
Alright, I do think it's pretty much impossible to pick a favorite song, because they're all great. But I do remember before I'd ever seen the musical, I was obsessed with I Believe. I love that. I still love it, because it has a special place in my heart. And there are a few other songs that, like, when I'm kind of on shuffle, like, I will never skip them. And that is Hasidiga Ibawai, Spooky Mormon, Hell Dream, and Baptize Me. So, like, those 4 are, if I had to absolutely pick, I'd say those 4 are my favorite. But I do love all the other ones, too.
See, I can easily say my favorite, because it's honestly one of my favorite show tunes, is probably my second favorite show tune of all time. And that is Turn It Off. Because that was the first one, that was the first song that I had listened to. I was obsessed with the tap number. I thought it was, like, so funny. I thought the song was catchy. It's honestly one of my favorite show tunes of all time. I love it so much. And what's really funny is, like, I have my parents are very religious. They're not Mormons, but they are religious. And what's so ironic is my mom's favorite song from the first act was Hasadiga Ibawai. I totally thought, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's gonna murder me for bringing her to this and everything. And I look over and she's just laughing so hard. She's just rolling, like, in her chair, just laughing during Hasadiga. So, like, it was great. If my mom can laugh at the show, like, it's awesome.
I remember, while I was watching it with my mom, it wasn't really bad. I was kind of nervous that it was going to be weird. But, like, the only 2 moments where it was kind of awkward sitting next to her was, like, during Hasadiga Ibawai and during Baptize Me. I was like... But that's why
my mom's 2 favorot songs.
Yeah, that's why it was so, like, such a relief to hear at the end. She's like, no, I liked it. I thought it was funny. I'm like, oh, good. I'm not in trouble or anything.
See, the only part my mom had a problem with was during the pageant. When the African tribe comes out with giant fake penises on them. And they start humping each other. Like, pantomiming humping each other. So, during Joseph Smith, the American Moses.
Oh, that's
honestly,
a good one.
I could probably sing the entire OBCR, like, all the way through. I could probably sing the whole thing. I won't.
Do it right now.
But, yeah, I think Book of Mormon touches, like, such a special place for me in my heart. Like, it's what got me into South Park, Matt and Trey. I would not be doing this podcast.
You wouldn't have met me.
Without it, so, I mean, that's probably a bad thing for you guys listening. But I honestly cannot give it enough praise. I don't really have many negative things to say about it. I really don't. The cast I saw was fantastic. The only thing, like, I think I could say is I would love... Matt and Trey are very, like, we want our fans to be able to see it, you know, because they don't care really about pirating videos and everything. Mm-hmm. You know, they want to make everything accessible. And there have been speculations about them making a Book of Mormon movie, which they aren't opposed to, but they said it would not happen for a while. And while I'm not opposed to a movie, I think the best choice that they could make would be have an actual recording of a performance. Like, they've done that with Shrek the Musical, they've done it with countless others, like Rent and others, and that way, like, people could actually see the show. Like, it would be the show, and it could be accessible to others who can't afford, or, right. You know, and one, you get a better quality than a bootleg, so that would be one thing I would actually really enjoy if Matt and Trey would consider doing. Mm-hmm. But if they ever did make an actual movie of the musical, I would be, like, first in line to see it. Yeah. Without a doubt.
Totally.
That's all I have to say about it.
I guess one more thing I have to say is that I really do love the characters, especially Elder Price and Elder Cunningham, because I'm always kind of debating over which one I relate to more, and I'm always switching. I'm like, no, it's this one. No, it's this one. They did a good job of kind of getting in the headspace of, like, 19-year-old Mormons, even though they know nothing about that, but they just kind of made them so relatable and so quirky and cute, and I don't know, they were very... It was very good writing, which of course it is, but because it's Matt and Trey, but I still love it.
Yeah, even if I didn't love South Park, I know I would still love this musical. I would still absolutely love it. One, it's funny, which is what you'd expect from Matt and Trey, but I mean, it's an astounding musical itself. Yeah. Like, it's got great, I don't think there's any, like, bad song in the entire show. There's not a single down point in the show. Right. For me. I think they're all, like, consistently great, and that's also due to Bobby Lopez. Bobby Lopez is fantastic. I'm so glad he's continuing to do more things, especially for Disney. And I just honestly think it was like it's obviously, there's no such thing as a perfect show, but it definitely remains its spot as my favorite. Without a doubt. So, gosh, thank God for Book of Mormon.
Yeah, great musical.
Absolutely wonderful. But I guess that's all I have to say. Literally, that's all I have to say about that. I've spent like 20 minutes talking about how much I love this fucking musical.
I think that's a wrap on episode 15 of Podcasa Bonita.
Yeah, about damn time. Sorry for any interruptions and all that.
Oh yeah, you gotta make your announcement for next time.
Yes, so next time we might have an actual delay, and it'll be my fault, again, like everything is my fault, because I will be in Hawaii, and I will have extreme jet lag, so we might have a delay, we might not, we will see, but I promise there will be a season 16 episode.
Yeah, and if it is a delay,
the scheduled week.
Right, if it is a delay, we'll probably just record it and have it up on like Monday or Tuesday instead of Sunday, so it's not like a whole week later or anything.
It's not like anybody actually listens to this.
Right, not that anybody cares, but
yeah, I'm kidding. I love everybody who listens.
All 4 of you.
All 4 of you. You guys are awesome.
Yeah, like, thank you for continuing to tune in.
Leave us some more questions, honestly, and ideas.
Yeah, we love them.
Even though we are, kind of getting close to the end of the series, like the end of the series, sort of.
Yeah, as it stands now, yeah.
We are planning some for the summer that are more like specials. So give us some ideas, or let us know if you want to be on the show. We are always like open to stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
So, thank you guys for listening, especially this long ass episode.
Yes, thank you everybody. We love you.
We love you. Bye.